everybody, and welcome to the end of week 7 of the 50-day property challenge brought to you by EDBF Property Academy and Private Property. Today, we'd like to show you a few clips of our discussions with Jared, where he is nearing the end of his first property purchase. And because he is nearing the end, we thought we would discuss with Meyer de Waal, our attorney, on what the process is of transferring a property from one person to another. So let us first listen to the discussion we had with Jared, and then we will hear what Meyer de Waal had to say about the transfer process. Today, we only have Jared in the room, and we're going to be talking to him about a number of things, but most especially where he's at with his challenge at the moment in the 50-day property challenge. So we are now in week 7 already. Wow, the time has flown, Jared.
Definitely. Listen, it's been quite a journey and it feels like it's happening so fast, but keeping in mind 50-day challenge, so it will feel like it's speeding through. And as mentioned before, we're still learning so much, but it's been exciting to actually see myself entering the space and being able to actually make it work. As you know, Nigel, we rang the virtual bell for me with the side, and I'm very excited to say that pretty soon I'm entering the transfer process, which through previous conversations I'm sort of familiar with, but of course I'll be tapping into all of you just to guide me a bit further. So that's starting off. And at the same time, you also did tell me that I have to find another property. And that it was a property I didn't think I would be interested in. It is slightly out of my price range. It's sitting at 1.4 mil, 1.399. And it's a heritage property. There's a lot of history attached to it. It's a 4-bedroom. It's got big grounds of about almost 3,000 square meters. So it's got the right, I think I'm really interested in creating Airbnb opportunities, especially as tourism opens up. And I'm really interested in the property, but like I've mentioned to you, it's out of that price range, that easy price range where you can just grab something quickly. So I needed to ask you and your team to help me figure out how to acquire the funds. I know that as we've journeyed, we've spoken about speaking to the banks or getting your funds from other people, using other people's money, which always sounds like the favorite to me. And so I just need to learn a bit more about that. But I'm excited that I'm on this journey, and I really want to capitalize on all this information that I have and build the portfolio over a period of time. But I'm reaching the goal. I'm just happy that I got started with all of you guys. So
all right, that's
looking good.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So I mean, I'm very glad that we got in the first half of the program, you got to a point where you've already now put in your offer to purchase. The cash is available between yourself, your wife, and a couple of other friends, which in effect is one of the ways to raise capital, and using other people's money is getting friends and family involved. So that's just one of the ways that you can raise money for a project like this. And I'm very glad that you are now in that transfer process. Later on this week, or today maybe even, we'll have a chat with Meyer de Waal where we'll talk about the transfer process and how that works, and so that you can also be enlightened in terms of the entire process. Very often, we as buyers and sellers even don't see what happens in the back end with the attorneys and the title deeds, the deeds office, all of that kind of thing. So I want to just showcase that to you and to the public so that you guys also know what's going on in the back end while you sit and wait and twiddling your thumbs waiting for your transfer to happen. So I'm very, very chuffed that we are almost there. And I think probably based on the timing, we'll probably this week already you will take transfer. And yeah, so it sounds like we are there. We're almost there.
It almost felt impossible in the beginning of all of this.
So
at least for everybody watching on this journey with us, you can see that it is possible. It's just about having enough knowledge and knowing exactly the kind of portfolio that you want to build. And while the property game is where it's at, it's about diving in now, because as things open up. I can physically see prices changing. Properties that maybe dropped in price during the pandemic have now started sort of balancing out to where they were before. So now's the time.
It's quite amazing to see that in your limited knowledge of the property sector, the kinds of stuff you're talking about, the fact that the market is leveling out, and you clearly have done a lot of research in terms of the markets and so on.
I look on the app, so I am watching it all the time. I bookmark some properties so you can see the changing. And when engaging with the agents that are representing the properties, they themselves will give you transparency on this, what the value is. It dropped to X amount, and there are forums, as you've mentioned before, where you can check what the property, what the rate it is going at, if it dropped, what the properties around that specific property has sold for, just to give you insight into maybe what you're getting yourself into, and if it's a good area to invest in. Is it dropping? Is it increasing? Is it just due to the pandemic, or is the area becoming a sought after area, or is there a decline of people moving out? And these are all very important things that I've seen through listening to all of you and through all the many features within EDPF Academy's website that you can tap into to make sure that you're making informed and insightful decisions. So I'm grateful. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying all of these things, because a few weeks ago I was as green as an avocado, and now we're here talking about property, and it's quite cool to see that in a matter of weeks you can be part of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And even green avocados, when you cut them open, you leave them a little bit, they become brown. So you are now clearly seasoned after a couple of weeks of being on this program, and we hope that through the 3 years that you are still going to be with us, that you will learn so much more, and that you'll be able to grow your portfolio to a substantial size before you leave this program in 2024, at the end of 2024. Yeah. So anyway, so you asked me a question in terms of capital and how you now start to expand your portfolio. So your situation is that you don't earn a fixed income. Correct. Which makes it very difficult, actually. And people might think, no, he's a celebrity, he's got lots of money. That's far from the truth. Yeah. So that's the reason, one of the reasons you came to us is to say, I'd like to start my property portfolio, but because I don't have a fixed income, the banks are not inclined to necessarily look at me as a potential person to invest into from a property investment perspective. So how do I then, as somebody who doesn't have that fixed income, how do I now find the money if I can't raise the money through the bank? So let's have a quick dive into that. We don't have to do a deep dive today, but for anybody who wants to do a deep dive, we've got some videos, free videos on our website, www.edpfpropertyacademy.com. They can go to the website for the deep dive. But let's just talk about some of the typical ways that you can raise money for a property investment opportunity. Okay, so you can chill a little bit. Let me do some talking, and then we'll have a chat again after I'm done. So obviously the first way to raise capital is the bank. So if you have a steady income, whether that is because you've got a job, or because you've got a contract with an organization, or if you just have, like you have gigs all the time and you've got steady income then flowing through your accounts every single month, what the bank will then do is they will look at your lowest and your highest, and then for the last 6 months, and then they will do sort of an average of what your salary has or your income has been for those few months. And then they could even use that as your repayment ability. What they will then also do is to, if you have now, after, like with Ntabaleng, for example, Matt Alshi has already purchased 2 properties. And we had a conversation with ABSA last week where they are busy now working with her to say, because you bought 2 properties already, We're going to help you in your third property and beyond to use what they call their future rental income product. So even if you don't have a steady income, or if you don't have a salary, the bank could still help you with different products that they have. But if the bank cannot help you, then what we then do, like you did with your first property that you've now purchased and you're just waiting for transfer, basically you first thing you do is go to friends and family. I last week and this week, in fact, 2 weeks in a row now, I have done an exercise with the students in our program where I've asked them to literally just take their phone. I've got a very funky cover. It's all green, light green and everything. Take their phone and take the top 10 names where they think that those people possibly have money to spend and want to invest into something, but don't have the time and don't have the energy or the wherewithal to understand where to invest. But they have the money. And the exercise was quite telling, because what then happened in the first week that we did this exercise 2 weeks ago, a group of second years in the program, they started phoning. I gave them 45 minutes on a Saturday to phone about 5 or 10 people. And within 45 minutes, almost every single one of them came back with a positive answer of almost everybody they phoned to say, yes, I can invest in something like this. If you take the lead, you find the deals for us, we will co-invest with you. And the minimum that any one of those students was able to raise was 750,000 Rand. And there were some that was able to raise a lot more in 45 minutes on a Saturday. So imagine how much, if you have all this time with all your contacts and your phone book, and you start making those phone calls to say you're in this EDPF program, you want to raise capital for your projects, and you've now got this new project that you want to do. It's over R1 million, so it's out of that price range that you were initially looking for, but it does fall within that category of Airbnb and those kinds of things that you want to do. So if you pick up your phone and you start phoning those people on your phone that's listed on your database, and you start calling them and say, listen, I'm looking to do this thing. I'm finding the deals. If you co-invest with me in a company that we register, then they get a share in the business. So that's one way, friends and family. Then another way that you can raise money is vendor finance. Now, a lot of people ask, it sounds so complicated. What is this thing called vendor finance? Effectively, vendor finance is when you use the seller's money to finance your purchase, which sounds insane. I mean, why would a seller pay you to buy a property from them? But it's possible in this game. What you do is you go to a seller and you say to them, look, I've got this ability to convert opportunities. And I've learned all these things from the EDPF program. And what I want to do with your property is to take the property and convert it into an Airbnb type scenario. Over a period of time, I'm going to pay you back. I'm going to pay you, number one, a rental, which will be the normal rental and what they call an occupational rental. So I will occupy the property, and I will rent the property from you for, say, 20,000 Rand a month, whatever the number is. Then take that property, and then you go and rent it out to other people on an Airbnb system. Now, on Airbnb, you can make a lot more money than if you're renting it out to an individual or a family. So then the profit you make off the Airbnb, that's your profit. But then you take that profit and you then actually put that back in again, and you continue to pay the owner, the landlord of the property, the owner of the property. And over a period of, say, 5 years, you can then pay back the entire amount of money that you then owe the seller, because he has now sold it to you on almost like a lease agreement type. When you buy a car, when you buy a vehicle, you finance the vehicle over 5 years and you pay the bank over that period of time. You can do the same with property. And they register in deeds office against the title deed the fact that you have now purchased the property on this basis, and that over the 5-year period, you would then pay the owner or the seller the full amount. So instead of going to the bank for the money, you're saying to the seller, I'm not going to pay the bank, I'll pay you. And
Okay.
you actually use this property to generate the income in order to pay it back.
Yes, but that's obviously subject to the reasons for the seller wanting to put the property on the market, you know. So it's obviously if they want the cash front, if they need the lump sum. But that sounds pretty good, because I think the property that I saw is quite new, and I've already spoken to an agent. Of course, it's in the Karoo, so I can't just get there like this afternoon to go and view. But that doesn't sound like there's a rush for the sale, and that might be a worthwhile conversation to have. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So now that we've heard from Jared in terms of his property journey, let's listen in on the conversation we had with Meyer de Waal regarding the transfer process. There is so much that goes into that process, and the attorneys have to do so much paperwork so that they can transfer the property from a seller to a buyer. So let's hear what Meyer de Waal had to say. Today, with Jared and Matt Al, we have in the room the very famous Mr. Meyer de Waal, my favorite attorney in Cape Town. He's been involved with the EDPF program for close on 5 years now, where he is teaching our entrepreneurs in the program everything they need to know about the legal aspects of property. Today, we have asked Meyer to talk to us about the transfer process. As you know, Jared has now bought his first property, and Matt Al is about to buy her third property. And while they wait for the transfer to happen into their names, we just thought maybe it would be good for us to talk about how that transfer process happens. Because as buyers and sellers, after all the paperwork is done, we sit back and we wait, and we're not sure what's going on in the background. So we thought maybe today we would talk to Meyer and ask him, from the day we sign the offer to purchase, what all the processes are until the day we actually take transfer. So I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to let Meyer talk. And if there's anything that I think we need to maybe clarify, I'll then interrupt him and ask him to clarify that particular issue or topic. So Meyer, all over to you. Our audience know you. We've already had some conversations together, so no need to really introduce yourself this time. But Meyer, just tell us all about the transfer process.
So now you've paid your attorney has drafted the transfer documents for the seller to sign. Also sign affidavits and transfer duty declarations for the buyer to sign. Set up a meeting to go and sign the documents. In the meantime, the bond attorneys will be instructed by the bank that issued and approved the bond, and they'll also draw documents after they've received the property details from the transferring attorneys, and they will prepare the mortgage documents to sign. It's normally a fixed stack of documents to sign. Some of the banks have gone into electronic signature, which is really great, because you get a stack like that of documents to work through, and it's quite intimidating documents because you're signing waivers, you're signing indemnities. It's a lot of documents, and that luckily where the conveyancing attorney needs to sit with a client and explain to them all the ins and outs of that. And the main thing is that you've got to sign a debit order as well, and that debit order dictates which time of the month the debit will run off your bond account. Something to remember is that if your bond is registered on the 7th or the 10th and you indicate it on the 1st, just keep extra money in your bond account in case the bond goes off, and never think that, don't worry, it's not going to go off. Make sure you don't want to skip your first payment once the bond is registered and the debit order goes off. So now we've looked at the transferring attorney drafts the power of attorney, the seller's documents, apply for rates, apply for the size documents, and if there's a body corporate or a homeowner association involved, then you'll also write a letter to the body corporate or the HOA and inform them that the property has been sold. And usually there's a condition in particular in the Sectional Title Act that you can't transfer a property unless provision has been made for the payment of the levies to the body corporate. The conveyancer provides a certificate once that arrangement has been made or been paid, and then you are able to lodge the deeds in the deeds office. Remember when I said there are three types of attorneys involved: the transferring attorney, the bond cancellation, and the new bond registration. So the transferring attorney will phone all the attorneys and say, tomorrow we are going to the deeds office. Please give me your documents before we go to the deeds office. They all meet outside or in a particular room, and you get the deeds of everybody. And the transferring attorney then links up all three transactions by writing on the outside cover that this transaction, that one, and that one are linked with each other. They put them together, put them in a box at the deeds office, and then the deeds office will go to the sorting room. In the sorting room, the deeds office will then pair all the documents together, and they will go and pull the information that is on the deeds office system to check, are there any interdicts against the property? Maybe somebody brought an interdict against you selling the property. They also check that you haven't been sequestrated. They also check that the property details are correct, and they print out all that document and put it in the folder. That goes through a scanning process with a barcode, and that gets put on a trolley bin and goes to the sorting room. The sorting room will then go out and dish it out to the junior examiners. The junior examiners normally got a day or two to go through all the documents, make sure that all the documents are there. It's now the power of attorney, the new deed, the rates clearance, the trans duty clearance, the levy clearance, and also your old title deed and any supporting documents that go with that. Once they've gone through that, they send it back to the sorting room, and that takes another 3-4 days. They scan everything. Luckily, we can track every transaction in the deeds office through the scanning, and then it goes to the senior examiner. They also make some notes on the inside of your file if they do find that there are typing errors or documents missing. And if there's a huge document missing or error, they'll put a big R on it. Now that you don't want to see in your life, because it's the R means rejected, and you never want to see a rejected. So because then you get embarrassed, you've got to phone your client and say, oh, I made a mistake and I've got to do something again. And there are errors that come through. It's human, but sometimes documents are not there that's supposed to be there, or these office makes a note and say, I'm not sure about what you're trying to do here. Can you come and explain to me? Sometimes you find that they just reject the deeds rather than asking the question. Then the deeds come through to the final examiner on level 3, and then they normally, after 10-14 days, they appear in the preparation room, what we call short the prep room. When it appears in the prep room, everybody, your clerk at the deeds office, will pick up the deeds and phone the office and say, hey, the transfer of Nigel to Maya just came up for registration today, and there's a bond to be cancelled. So we phone the bond attorneys, we phone the cancellation attorneys and say, okay, are we all ready that we can hand in for registration the next day or the next day? We have 5 days there in the preparation room, the prep room, to organize the finances. Sometimes the seller or the buyer must pay you a little bit of fees. You need to collect a shortfall on the purchase price. In between that time, the estate agent normally has also arranged electrical and beetle and other compliance certificates, and that's also sent to all the parties. So sometimes there's a hiccup with one of the compliance certificates are not issued, and then you've got 5 days to sort out those small items, sometimes big items. And once everybody is ready, and the secretary in the office and the conveyancing attorney then prepares the final finances, you prepare one for your file to see that the money that came in and the money that's paid out will balance. Very important. The second one is what money gets paid to the seller, because on date of transfer, that conveyancing attorney will pay the money over to the seller, less what has been paid to the bond, less what is paid to the agent. So the attorney will do all those payments and facilitate all those payments. And very important that they have the banking details of the estate agent, and also the FFC license of the estate agent, and also then the seller's banking details. And by that time, the bond of the purchaser will kick in. That money will be paid through by guarantee into the bank account of a transferring attorney. So they will collect all the money, do all the reconciliations, and then they will pay out to everybody who needs to be paid out, and do a final reconciliation of finances and present that to the seller and the buyer, and also for your file, because it's critical that your file ends up in a 0. That is once you've taken your fees. So that's very much in a nutshell the conveyancing process. Now the deeds office goes out, and the conveyancing attorney appears in the morning between 9:30 to 10 o'clock, appears at the deeds office in front of a, that's now one step I skipped, but you appear in front of the deeds office to a register of deeds to sign the deeds, which we call the execution of the deeds. once you execute the deeds, then it means actually it's not like you're cutting off somebody's head like execution, but the deeds office with the rest of deeds also signs the deeds. They also put that on their tracking system, and then they after that they keep the title deeds for about a month or 2 or 3, sometimes depend on the turnaround times, and then they capture all that information on their system. That electronically you are now also indicated that you are the new owner, and the old owner is no longer the owner. So that takes about that data capturing take a few weeks, and then the title deeds are returned to the conveyancing attorney. If a buyer was a cash buyer, you'll call the buyer and say, "Yeah, congratulations, here's your title deed, and you must now please put your title deed in a safe place." The reason for a safe place is that in the old days, you could just ask the deeds office for a replacement copy if your title deed is lost, and they'll issue a title deed. Then they became kind of fed up with people are losing their title deeds, and now they say you've got to advertise in the government gazette and the local newspaper, and that takes about a 3-week period, so you lose time. Plus, it costs you about R4,500 in advertising costs. So please, if you have a title deed, put it in a safe place. If you have a bond over the property, the attorneys will send you a copy of the title deed, and they'll send the original to the bank, because the bank keeps that in safe custody as the security until you have paid up the bond. So again, what flows from this, again, your will. Whenever you have bought a property, go and review your title deed, go and review your insurance, because you've got an asset now. If you have a mortgage, make sure that you have insurance that can settle the debt on your date of death, because you don't want to leave that debt to your family. They may have to sell the property if you haven't got insurance to cover it. Sometimes we find that a husband and wife are married, the husband is economically active, the wife is stay-at-home mum, and now the husband dies, and the wife's got to sell the house because they didn't take out insurance to cover the debt. If you've got a cash, if you bought cash, then obviously you've got cash on when you don't have a mortgage to repay, but keep that title deed in a safe place. And then again, look at your will to redraft. We also provide that service for all EDPF members. We give them free service for a new will. So please make contact with us that we can actually also assist you with a free will. And that's me, a wrap up on the conveyancing process. I think I've most likely covered quite a lot in that few minutes.
Wow, that's fantastic. And listen, I applaud you for the patience that you show. I mean, I see it every day. Attorneys have to have extreme patience with clients who literally know nothing about the process, don't understand legal documentation, don't understand the implications of the legal documents that they sign. And often, I see it more often than not, where a document gets stuck in front of somebody's face and they just sign without even thinking. So I applaud you, and I thank you for the service that you render to us as EDPF and our students, as well as the public at large. But for now, Maya, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure having a conversation with you, because literally every time I talk to you, I learn something new, and I know that our students and the public out there with this 50-day challenge has learned quite a lot about the transfer process, what goes into it, and all the legal documentation and the processes. It is absolutely amazing how you guys cope on a daily basis with this. So thank you, Maya, for your time. Thank you for the public out there that listen to us diligently every day on this 50-day challenge. We are nearing the end of the challenge now, hence the reason why we thought we'd talk about the transfer process, because it is something that you have to understand. You have to know when you do a property purchase or even a property sale, that you have to know these things and understand what goes into it, so that you don't get frustrated when it takes 3 or 4 weeks longer than you thought it would. But thank you, Maya. Thank you, Private Property, for allowing us this platform for the EDPF Property Academy to run this 50-day challenge. And thank you to you, the audience, for diligently watching us. Thank you, Maya, for that extremely insightful discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this journey. And at the end of week 7, we hope that you've learned so much that you are able to purchase your first property within this 50-day challenge.